A guest at JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding has finally opened up about what Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were really like behind the scenes. While most guests were celebrating, the newlyweds' behavior reportedly left some people raising eyebrows. Here's what happened. Here's the timeline first, because it matters. On July 3rd, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce officially said "I do" in a star-studded ceremony at Madison Square Garden in New York City. After months of global anticipation, 1,000 guests, black tie, the whole arena turned into something out of a fairy tale. That part of the story most people already know. What a lot of people missed is what happened exactly 1 week later. No honeymoon, no disappearing act. Instead, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce stepped out for a second wedding just a week after their own, attending the nuptials of NFL player JuJu Smith-Schuster and Laura Crook. And this wasn't some quiet, low-key appearance either. This was the newlyweds attending the wedding of Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster and Laura Crook, making one of their first public appearances since tying the knot. So why JuJu? Because JuJu and Travis spent several seasons together in Kansas City, and they helped the Chiefs win Super Bowl LVII, remaining close after their time as teammates. And this wasn't a one-way relationship. Smith-Schuster and his now wife had been on the other side of this exact story just 7 days earlier. Smith-Schuster and his fiancée Laura Crook were among the 1,000 people who attended Kelce and Swift's nuptials, which meant Swift and Kelce had to travel across the country just days after their own epic wedding. Think about that logistics nightmare for a second. You get married on a Friday night in Manhattan in front of 1,000 people. Then, according to reports, before this event, the newlyweds were seen in Montana hanging out with Jason Kelce and his wife Kylie, spending time at the exclusive members-only Yellowstone Club in Big Sky. Then on Thursday, July 9, the couple reportedly touched down in California for JuJu's wedding. New York to Montana to California in the space of 7 days, all while still riding the high of their own vows. And when they landed at the Ritz-Carlton in Laguna Niguel, they weren't hiding. Guests say Taylor was wearing a strapless pink floral dress ball gown, while Travis was in a classic black tuxedo, and they were spotted hand in hand as they were walking inside the venue. Other accounts describe it slightly differently. Swift wore a strapless pink brocade gown, while Kelce wore a gray suit, and Swift donned her signature red lip as well. But every single guest account agrees on one thing. They arrived together, locked at the hand, and they were not shy about it. The dress itself became its own story. Reports pinned it down to a specific designer piece. Swift made the whole place shimmer in a pink and red strapless floral brocade gown from Marcarian, priced at $4,115, along with a pair of sunglasses and her signature red lip, the same red lip guests keep bringing up, like it was some kind of signal that she was fully back in party mode. 1 week a wife and already back on someone else's dance floor. But it's what happened once they got inside that guests really wanted to talk about, because according to people who were actually there, this wasn't a couple quietly clapping from the back row. At one point during the event, Swift sipped on a flute of champagne and greeted other guests at the ceremony with warm handshakes. She wasn't sticking to a VIP corner. She was working the room like she'd been friends with half the guest list her whole life, which, given how many NFL circles overlap with Kelce's world, she may as well have been. And Kelce himself showed up in a completely different gear than fans are used to seeing him in. Out of the shoulder pads, out of the broadcast booth, and into full wedding guest mode. Her NFL husband was all smiles next to her as he traded his jersey for a suit and large frame sunnies. The vibe guests describe isn't celebrity couple making an obligatory appearance. It's two people who had just gotten married themselves, still buzzing off their own big day, showing up to somebody else's wedding and treating it like an extension of the party they'd just thrown. That's the piece that guests kept circling back to when they talked about the day. Not the dress, not the tuxedo, the energy. The idea that a global pop star and an NFL tight end, 1 week into marriage, would fly across the country and then act less like honored guests and more like the life of the party. And according to the people actually standing on that dance floor with them, acting like the life of the party barely covers it. Because once the ceremony wrapped and the reception kicked in, that's when things really got going. And that's where the story gets interesting. Before getting into what actually happened on that dance floor, it's worth understanding just who else was in that room, because the JuJu Smith-Schuster wedding wasn't some quiet backyard affair. It was, in its own right, a small reunion of the exact same crowd that had watched Swift and Kelce get married 7 days earlier. TMZ had gotten wind of the guest list before the big day even happened, reporting that the guest list was stacked with NFL stars, including Patrick and Brittany Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Kendrick Bourne, George Karlaftis, Tyquan Thornton, and Jacob Tuioti Mariner. That's not a random collection of plus ones. That's the Chiefs' locker room, essentially transplanted onto a beach resort in Orange County. And that overlap with Kelce and Swift's own wedding wasn't a coincidence. It was basically the same circle, just swapping who was standing at the altar. Multiple reports confirmed just a week after exchanging vows at their star-studded Madison Square Garden ceremony in New York City on July 3. The couple attended another wedding to celebrate NFL player JuJu Smith-Schuster's and Laura Crook's wedding. Now rewind for a second to their own wedding, because it explains exactly why this crowd felt like family rather than a business trip. At MSG, Swift and Kelce invited celebrities such as Emma Stone, Zoe Kravitz, and Ed Sheeran to the event, and were serenaded with musical performances from Stevie Nicks and Paul McCartney. But one guest, journalist Robin Roberts, made a point of saying it didn't feel like some untouchable celebrity affair. She noted how the pair included their neighbors and high school friends, making it feel like any wedding you'd attend. That detail matters because it tells you something about the temperament these two brought into JuJu's wedding a week later. They weren't treating it as an obligation. They were treating it the way Donna Kelce described her son's own wedding. I really can't say a heck of a lot except it was magical, man. Magical. That's the energy that appears to have followed them straight into Laguna Niguel. At their own wedding, the guest roster had read like a greatest hits list of pop culture and sports. Throngs of A-list guests were spotted stepping out in NYC to attend the celebration, including Gigi Hadid and Bradley Cooper, Dakota Johnson, Mariska Hargitay, and Peter Herman. Ed Sheeran and Cherry Seaborn, the Haim sisters, Ellie Goulding, Benson Boone, Maren Morris, Kelsey Ballerini, Miranda Lambert, The Chicks, Brad Paisley, and Kimberly Williams Paisley, Hugh Grant, Carly Kloss and Joshua Kushner, Zoe Kravitz, Jason Sudeikis, Ethan Hawke, Jimmy Fallon, and Tommy Hilfiger. Jessica Alba was there too, someone who'd starred alongside Swift in a music video over a decade earlier. And reports noted she proved she still has mad love for Swift, attending the ceremony with her boyfriend. Even the Patriots alumni network showed up for the MSG affair. Julian Edelman posted about the night, calling it one hell of a love story while attending the bash, with his fellow Patriots alum and Gronk's longtime girlfriend, adding, "Congrats to Taylor and Travis. Unbelievable day celebrating two incredible people." So by the time the following weekend rolled around and JuJu's wedding kicked off in California, you had essentially a rolling cast of overlapping friend groups, football players, their partners, a handful of entertainers, following Swift and Kelce from one altar to the next. It's the same social gravity, just a different zip code. And that overlap explains why guests at JuJu's wedding felt comfortable enough to talk about what Swift and Kelce were doing once the music started. These weren't strangers watching a celebrity couple from a distance. These were teammates, coaches, and friends who just spent an entire week watching this same couple celebrate their own marriage. And now they were watching them do it all over again, just from the other side of the guest list. Because once you get past the outfits, the handshakes, and the champagne flutes, what people actually remember from that night in Laguna Niguel is what happened once the band started playing. And according to more than one person in that room, neither Swift nor Kelce left much room for anyone to forget it. Now here's where the story gets its teeth, because it's one thing to say Swift and Kelce showed up to a wedding one week after their own. It's another thing entirely to hear what people who were actually standing next to them on the dance floor had to say about it. The clearest account comes from Ryan Fitzpatrick, the former NFL quarterback turned Thursday Night Football analyst, who attended the wedding with his wife Liza. When asked about the night, Fitzpatrick didn't talk about Swift and Kelce's outfits or their entrance. He went straight to the dance floor, telling reporters point blank that there was a lot of dancing, hours and hours, and that he and his wife were still kind of recovering from being out on that dance floor for 6+ hours. 6+ hours. That's not a quick two-step at the reception. That's an entire night surrendered to the dance floor. And by every account, Swift and Kelce were right in the thick of it. Fitzpatrick's own takeaway from the night wasn't about celebrity spotting at all. His favorite memory was purely personal, saying, "My favorite moment was just, I got to spend the night with my wife just on the dance floor, being around and being in it. So that was pretty magical for us." That single detail tells you everything about the atmosphere Swift and Kelce dropped into. This wasn't a wedding where celebrities sat at a roped-off table, sipping champagne from a distance. It was a night where an entire dance floor, Fitzpatrick's included, lost hours to it, and multiple accounts describe Swift and Kelce as fully immersed in exactly that kind of night. Then there's the officiant reveal, which floored the room in its own right. Fitzpatrick described the moment the ceremony began, saying when Adam Sandler walked out, it had everybody floored. That was really cool, before adding simply that the ceremony was beautiful. Yes, Adam Sandler, the same comedian who'd officiated Swift and Kelce's own wedding just 7 days earlier, showed up to officiate JuJu Smith-Schuster's too. Whether that's the tightest friend circle in modern celebrity culture or the busiest wedding circuit any comedian has ever run in a single week, it's hard to say. But it does help explain why this crowd felt like one giant continuous celebration rather than two separate events. And it explains why Sandler's advice, the same keep kissing line Andy Reid had shared just days earlier, kept echoing through the group as they moved from one reception to the next. Beyond the dancing and the officiant reveal, guests also zeroed in on how Swift and Kelce carried themselves around other people at the event, not just each other. One guest who'd also attended their own MSG wedding told reporters they were both beaming the entire night, which lines up with what people were saying about their own reception the week prior. And that instinct to work a room rather than retreat from it reportedly followed them straight into JuJu's wedding too, with sources describing how, despite the size of the crowd, the newlyweds took the time to talk to everyone they could. She kept thanking everyone for being there, a source told People. Put those pieces together and you get a much clearer picture of what crazy behavior actually looked like in practice. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't scandal. It was two people who had just gotten married, dropping into somebody else's wedding and refusing to sit still, dancing for hours, working the room, greeting virtually every guest, and doing it all while still riding the emotional high of their own vows from a week earlier. Fitzpatrick's blunt admission that he and his wife were still recovering from that dance floor days later says more about the atmosphere Swift and Kelce created, or at least fully bought into, than any red carpet photo ever could. And that raises an obvious question. If this is how they behaved at somebody else's wedding, exactly 1 week after their own, what does that say about what their own reception looked like? Turns out guests have plenty to say about that too. And it traces a direct line back to exactly the kind of night that would spill over into the following weekend. To really understand why Swift and Kelce showed up to JuJu's wedding still buzzing, you have to go back 7 days to the night that started it all inside Madison Square Garden. The ceremony itself ran long by design. The two exchanged their own vows that they personally wrote, and were reportedly 20 minutes each. That's 40 minutes of vows alone, before a reception even started. The kind of ceremony that sets an emotional tone for an entire night, rather than just checking a box. And the officiant moment set off its own wave of reaction. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid, who wasn't shy about sharing details afterward, told reporters that Sandler did a phenomenal job officiating, and passed along the advice Sandler gave the couple directly. Kiss every chance you have, every day, whether you're going to bed or going to work. Whenever, go ahead and kiss her. That advice apparently didn't just sit as a nice quote for the cameras. Reid brought it up again days later at a public event in Salt Lake City, reinforcing it, almost like a running joke among the friend group. He told them, "Keep kissing," Reid said. So, in its simplest form, that's a good thing. It's hard to argue when you give your wife a kiss, or your wife gives you a kiss. Meanwhile, the reception itself sounds like it set the exact template for what would happen at JuJu's wedding the following week. Guests recall raffle prizes and games built into the night, including designer bags and a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle, the same car that Kelce drove Swift off into the Sunset Inn after her first Chiefs game in September 2023. That's not a small detail. That's a couple building their own private history into the props of their wedding reception, turning it into a night-long celebration rather than a single ceremony. The family details tell their own story too. On the wedding party front, while the rumors flew as to who from Swift's squad would make it onto the altar with her, both the Grammy winner and her now husband opted to skip the traditional wedding party. Instead, Swift had her brother Austin Swift act as her man of honor, while Kelce tapped his brother Jason Kelce to be his best man. And the flower girl detail brought the whole extended family into it. Sports broadcaster Rich Eisen confirmed the flower girls were Kelce's brother Jason's 4 daughters, Wyatt, Elliot, Bennett, and Finley Kelce, who were sprinkling flower petals all over the place. Even the outside world got pulled into the spectacle. New York City's Mayor Zohran Mamdani revealed that Taylor had paid the cost of the permit for MSG. That included police protection, which was over $160,000. That's the scale we're talking about. A wedding big enough to need a city permit and its own police detail. And still, guests describe the couple as personally making the rounds and thanking people individually rather than hiding behind the security. So when JuJu's wedding rolled around a week later, Swift and Kelce weren't walking into unfamiliar territory. They were essentially continuing a pattern they'd already set for themselves. Dance until your feet give out. Greet every single guest personally. Lean into the sentimental gestures and let Adam Sandler handle the ceremony. The crazy behavior guests kept describing at JuJu's wedding wasn't some isolated outburst. It was Swift and Kelce simply being exactly who they'd already shown themselves to be 1 week earlier, just now doing it as guests instead of the couple at the altar. That consistency is actually what makes the story land. It's not that two celebrities showed up somewhere and acted differently than expected. It's that the same energy, the dancing, the handshakes, the champagne, the thank yous, followed them from their own reception straight into somebody else's, without any drop-off at all. By the time the last song played and the Ritz-Carlton emptied out, Swift and Kelce had done something most newlyweds never attempt. They turned their own honeymoon window into an extension of the celebration itself, one that pulled in an entire circle of teammates, coaches, and friends who just watched them get married themselves. For JuJu Smith-Schuster and Laura Crook, the timing turned out to be a gift rather than a distraction. Having a global pop star and an NFL veteran walk into your wedding, dance for hours, and personally thank you for having them isn't the kind of thing most couples get to say happened at their reception. And it makes sense why the invitation felt inevitable in the first place. The invite came as no surprise, since JuJu and Travis spent several seasons together in Kansas City and helped the Chiefs win Super Bowl LVII, remaining close after their time as teammates. That kind of friendship doesn't pause just because one half of the friendship spent the previous weekend getting married himself. For Swift and Kelce, the story doesn't end at the reception either. Reports since have continued to track them through the rest of their post-wedding stretch, from the Montana getaway to further sightings as they settle into married life in front of cameras that by now seem to follow their every move. And with Kelce's new chapter as a giant rather than a chief, and Swift's schedule inevitably filling back up, the JuJu wedding may end up being remembered as one of the last purely relaxed stretches before the machinery of both their careers picks back up. What guests keep coming back to, though, isn't the schedule or the outfits, or even the 6+ hours on the dance floor. It's the sense that none of it felt performative. Fitzpatrick didn't walk away talking about proximity to fame. He walked away talking about his own wife, and the fact that he'd gotten to spend a night dancing next to her. Reed didn't repeat Sandler's advice because it made a good headline. He repeated it because he genuinely seemed to believe in it. And the source who described Swift going out of her way to thank every single guest wasn't describing a publicity move. They were describing someone who, 1 week into marriage, still seemed to feel like she was hosting a party rather than attending one. That's ultimately what crazy behavior boiled down to, according to everyone who was actually in the room. Not scandal, not chaos, not anything guests needed to whisper about behind closed doors. Just two people, freshly married, refusing to let the celebration end, carrying it from their own altar to somebody else's reception, and leaving an entire dance floor of NFL players and their spouses needing days to recover. If that's crazy, it's the kind of crazy most newlyweds wish they had the energy for. People's Distiates DMZ via Yahoo. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce attend a wedding 1 week after their big MSG nuptials. Online. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce attend wedding as first outing after marrying. Online. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce attending JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding. TMZ. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce attending JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding week after theirs. The Mirror. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce make first ever appearance as married couple at JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding. YN. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce attend JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding after their own star-studded nuptials. AOL. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce attend a wedding 1 week after their big MSG nuptials. Yahoo News Canada. Newlyweds Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce look ultra glam at JuJu Smith-Schuster's wedding 1 week after MSG nuptials. https://calcatnewsyahoo.com. Newlyweds Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce 10,024,131